everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. I'll be your astrologer today. Thank you for joining me back at it with another video. Today we're going to be talking all about the archetypal breakdown of some of the transits going on this week leading up to this full moon in Aquarius, so we can understand how they are actually playing off of each other. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the Sun in Leo coming into an opposition with Saturn in Aquarius, and the Sun in Leo coming into a square with Uranus in Taurus, and how there's just like a lot of change in the air. If you're new to my channel, do me a favor, drop me a line, say hello, let me know where you're watching from. It'd be great to hear from some of our new subscribers. We're seeing so much growth on the channel. Big thank you to everybody who's leaving comments, giving thumbs up, and sharing is caring. And if you want to support my channel, you can do that by being a part of one of the live readings that we have on Saturday nights, 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern. We do live readings, astrology or tarot. We alternate. And you can consider subscribing, sharing my videos, and becoming one of my members on my membership. So check that out if you like my content. We're putting out videos pretty much about 4 times a week now. So my goal was to try to make videos almost every day by the end of summer. So we've got another month here, and hopefully I can generate some more content for you guys. I really could have broken this down into 2 separate videos, but I felt like doing so kind of like diced it up, and it wasn't really going to give you this whole cohesive kind of perspective. Now, some of you guys have already seen my full moon in Aquarius video. Really, all these energies are leading up until this lunation, and we're going to be feeling lots of fixed squares throughout this week. And what we know about fixed squares is that they represent tension, things that boil over, difficult decisions, forks in the road, and feeling that pressure of needing to make some major significant changes in our life. Now, squares are designed that way, so we kind of have to pick a lane, pick a side, make a decision, and act on it. So it's very important that we're participating in whatever is changing in our lives this week. It can be as simple as changing your mind, changing direction, changing jobs, and there's going to be lots of important I think lessons that are going to be had as a result of whatever is taking place for the next week or so ahead. I kind of wanted to start by talking about Lionsgate, which I think is kind of like not in the title, right? And you hear a lot of this like, okay, August 8th, like super magical, manifesting type portal energy. And I say this to be honest with you guys, like I'm not feeling that. I don't know if I've totally subscribed to that whole, 8/8 Lionsgate portal anyway, but if you're big into numerology and if you're big into some of these transits and stuff, totally fine. I'm not gonna make fun of it. But it doesn't quite feel like that manifestational portal to me. And I think a lot of it is because a lot of the aspects that we're seeing to Saturn, and that we're seeing challenging aspects to the Sun in Leo, which really takes away from that kind of vibrancy of the, being the lion, like, walking the walk, talking the talk, having that kind of jungle swag. And a lot of us are going to feel the light dimmed, and it's not as positive manifestational energy, I think, as some people might just assume. So it doesn't feel like a party to me, right? Seeing the Sun coming into opposition with Saturn, feeling like we're being stretched and we're being kind of blocked in some ways, and then also seeing those squares that are taking place to the North Node and also Uranus, which is just kind of like anything goes days. So I want to break this down and make people understand that it may feel like there's something new that's breaking through, like there's something new that's emerging in your life this week. And it may come about through crisis, or it may come about through doing something totally different and kind of going in a totally different direction than you thought you were going to go in. Astrologers say that the Lionsgate portal gives us a boost when it comes to our aspirations, and it allows us to manifest new ideas, and it enhances whatever's going on because of these like magical energies and these degrees or whatever is setting up these numbers. And could there be some truth to that? Maybe. I mean, I'm open to hearing what you guys think. And numerologists also consider this to be really magical because the number 8 deals with wealth and good luck and good vibes. And when it's turned sideways, it represents that infinity symbol, like the one that we see on the strength card that's above the maiden's head, right? So everything is kind of flowing infinitely into each other. Everything is connected. And maybe, and I've seen this in my life and I've seen this in a lot of my clients' lives, sometimes like the best change comes from that breakthrough moment, right? Like where you're like sitting there telling yourself like, I just can't do this anymore. You know, like that epiphany that happens, that just something has to give, something has to change. So I think for many of us, we can see that there can be really strong influential energies, but really they're not being supported by anything relating to Leo. I mean, talk to any significant Leo placement right now, Leo risings, you guys are really kind of getting hit. Anybody who's got any prominent placements in any of the fixed signs, but Leo in particular. And this is the time of the year where we're seeing some interesting stuff. We're seeing planets that are really coming into their strength, right? Sun in Leo, that vibrant energy of like really being in the heart space. Saturn in Aquarius, also equally as strong, being in its traditional, you know, ruling sign. Mercury just moving into Virgo. We're just seeing a lot of things that are really setting up where when the band plays with planets in their domicile, it's almost like all of the band comes to life when everybody's playing their own individual note and their instrument. And we start to see everything harmonize. But we're also going to feel that in the process of that, in order to truly honor these energies, Saturn in Aquarius, right? The test of time, you know, do we have enough time? Are we really committing to our goals? And where do we need to step aside from working with or being with other people that hinder our ability to be authentic and true to ourselves? Sun in Leo, where are we really leaning into our own personal creative desires? Where are we learning how to play, how to have romance, how to have fun? Mercury hanging out in Virgo, which wants to sort and sift and kind of make sense of things, right? Especially coming into some of these interesting aspects, oppositions to Neptune, questioning our reality, trines to the North Node, Uranus and Mars. Hey, I think we can do this differently. Granted, Mercury is going to go through retrograde, it's going to get refined. But I guess really what I want to talk about is what's actually going on, that this unique combination of these grand fixed squares that are being reenacted, planets in really strong placements, it's going to lead to a very dramatic shakeup. So I want to break this down archetypally so that way you can understand, especially when we're having such unique combinations that are happening within a matter of days leading up to a full moon, that it's not just a full moon and it's not just a sun square Saturn or, you know, a sun opposed Saturn or a sun square Uranus. It's everything working in unison. And I talked a little bit about how we've seen bending, and now we're coming back into one really close Saturn-Uranus square that'll be happening September going into October, which is likely when something breaks. We actually see the shift, we see the change. So if people have been feeling like they're at their breaking point, it's coming, and we might actually realize in the next couple of days that staying the same, it's like the pain of staying the same becomes so painful and so difficult that we have no other choice but to grow. Right? It's like I say this to myself all the time. I'm like, you know, I get to a point where I like get sick of my own shit and I'm just like, okay, something has to change. And maybe it's just me that I'm like really fixated on this square because it's having such an impact in my life that I really decided to sit down and create a whole list of like prompts. Just being someone who's going through Uranus opposed my sun and Saturn on my North Node square, you know, square the transit nodes. I'm actually feeling like, wow, there is a time and place for everything. I'm having to learn how to juggle. I'm having to learn how to multitask and do things different. So I want to give you guys some insight on some stuff that I've been kind of noting because it might be some good prompts for you in meditation or journaling or reflecting or things that you can be asking yourself over the next week as some of this cosmic shift is going down, okay? Now, when we see the sun come into a square with Uranus, we are going to see that people can be unreliable, right? Uranus has that kind of flippant, sudden changes, shifting kind of energy. And being in a fixed sign, it's something that we might see like speeds up and slows down, or something that takes a really long time to just shift, but then when it does shift, it's very sudden. So we can find that, you know, change is happening on a dime. Like we don't really know what we can kind of depend on or rely on, and just energies are changing, right? Sun square Uranus. It can also be that there's this sudden shift within our egos or within certain points in our life that might have had more influence or have had more weight to it, especially just considering what Taurus is. It's about our self-esteem, right? Our values, our security. It's like, I used to eat this and now I eat that. I used to spend money in this and now I value, you know, taking a walk in the park. Like, I think we're getting to a point in society where we're really kind of realizing like, what is the cost of the lives that we're living? And not just like financially, not just like the fiscal repercussion, but more, what are we giving up, right? Are we giving up, time to have peace and have a much more needed kind of simple life? Are we giving up having time with our family because we're feeling like we have to work our lives away to make ends meet? And is that happening because of the cost of the lives that we're living? So I found myself saying all the time, like, at what cost? Like, how could things be simplified through me making changes in my value system? And it's had a very big impact on me this year. Watching the sun come into an opposition with Saturn is going to feel, and I've said this especially during the full moon video, just like something is being craved. Like, we want something badly. We want something, but it seems out of reach. And I think when this happens, we're going to find that we feel like something's missing in our life. And this is wherever Aquarius is. So if you're like, where is this happening? This is where, that's taking place. It's your craving, whatever's coming up for you in Aquarius, because we're starting to feel that sun, which is really strong in Leo, coming into opposition with Saturn in Aquarius. Now that's going to be even magnified even more because we're going to feel this full moon. So, having the moon in Aquarius so close to Saturn, it's going to be like this harsh reality check, something very rigid, and something in regards to our emotional state. And the moon can represent our home, our mothers, our roots, the past somehow. And I feel like it's setting up for, at least for us on a personal level, as this harsh reality that some of the things that we want may not actually make us happy. Okay, some of the things that we think that are going to make us happy may not necessarily make us happy. And some of the things that we're really aiming for that are in alignment and are for our highest good, even though it's challenging to get there, if we get serious about those dreams, it is possible, and it then becomes the goal, right? So just the sun opposed Saturn, that's what you would see. But watching Mars in the North Node and Uranus square this is like saying, actually, it is possible if we make some physical change or we start looking at our material lives differently to be able to obtain that. So in this video, I'm also going to talk to you guys at the end about where, once again, the Mars, Uranus, North Node transit is taking place in Taurus, because I believe that T-square, even though it's made total havoc in our lives the last 2 weeks, it's actually going to be what is going to incentivize us to push further and maybe get out of that feeling stuck or feeling isolated or feeling cast aside or helpless that some of us may feel at the time of the full moon. So watch with the sun opposed Saturn, you're going to feel that there's like this, like I said, there's this craving for something that you feel like is out of your reach. And with the North Node, Mars, Uranus, and Taurus, this is where new patterns are emerging, like something that's active, it's electric, it's exciting, it's new, it's something that might even seem a little taboo or a little like dangerous or something that could happen too quickly. But it's also connected to our earthly desires, right? Pleasure, things that might actually bring us physical pleasure. And this area of your life is going to be helping during the full moon in Aquarius. Very strange astrology, very unique times that we're living in. I mean, I think just to have the sun opposed Saturn, we have that every year. That's not abnormal. But to see it in Aquarius, and if we look back on how it's happened during the last few full moons, 2020, 2021, 2022, it always coincides with this feeling of separation, right? Separating the individual, Sun and Leo, from the collective. So I think that we're, just reflect back on what was happening. It's always going to be sometime during Leo season, the last couple of years. And coming into this full moon, also just the seeds that have been planted since that, end of January, I think, new moon that we had in Aquarius. But I think of all the planets that went through Aquarius and like what we were committing to, what our goals were. So this can also be like this check-in point that's like, is that still the plan? Can we make that happen? Is it actually gonna make me happy? And Saturn rules time. So there's also this sense of like time crunches. So some of you guys, wherever Saturn is in your life, it's like, I don't have time for that, or I'm running out of time, or I need more time to achieve this. And the relationship that we have with time is changing because we are seeing squares from Uranus where the third dimension, real life, it's speeding up. And there's a method to the madness with the Saturn-Uranus square. And so to some extent, we have seen that Saturn has kind of stabilized Uranus, so it hasn't been kind of flying around wildly. But I also think just in terms of society that there have been things that have been going on that's delaying certain growth or delaying certain things from, you know, popping or becoming too extreme, or that there is like a evolution that's happening, you know, out in the world energetically, but spiritually, there is this awareness that if we progress too quickly, something could break. If it grows too quickly, it could get out of hand. So some of us are actually really benefiting from Saturn's energy. I'm super Saturnian. I have a very different relationship with Saturn. You know, most of my personal planets are conjunct Saturn, or they're an aspect to Saturn in some way. And I have seen Saturn, especially the last few years, almost like a bouncer of sorts, you know, like the spiritual bouncer that might seem like the strict teacher who's like, well, I did this because it was good for you. When in reality, when you're in it, it's really hard to see through, you know, it's hard to see the forest through the trees during a really intense Saturn transit. But coming out the other side, you actually realize like that strictness and the lessons and the limitations that you experienced as a result of that really saved you, and it prepared you for, you know, tough times, and it teaches you that tough times, they do pass, everything passes. Before I get into my prompts, a couple things. I've said this before, I'm going to say this again. Awesome book. I've been reading through this book. Been really great. The Gods of Change, Pain, Crisis, Transits of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So if you're going through like, you know, Uranus transits, or you got some Pluto stuff going on, some conjunction squares, whatever, great book. I got this last year and kind of knowing that all these transits were going to be happening, and it's been really great. If you're ever wondering what I'm reading, you can always check out my Amazon list below. I'm not really doing it to sell anything, but because I read so much and I'm also using different decks and stuff on the channel, sometimes people go, well, what book was that? So you can always see it's in my Amazon. Now, you're probably wondering, when is this all happening? So let me give you these dates so you know specifically. So here on August 10th, we are going to be seeing the Sun in Leo moves into a square with the nodes. A day where we have to just be aware of what's going on. There's a need to be conscious of feeling like, wow, I am at a crossroads. You know, is it going to be this or is it going to be that? And the Sun square the nodes is also the need to actively participate in what's going on. And ask yourself, is this bringing me joy? You know, does this feel good? Am I happy? You know, am I being authentic? That's going to be something I'm going to be talking about a lot. We will see then on the 11th, the Sun moves to square Uranus in Taurus. Now it looks like on the 11th, oh, I was on it. It looks like that's going to be happening around 18 degrees, which is an important point. This is the same point that Mars, the North Node, and Uranus conjuncted at. So in a way, this is a reactivation. So you have the Sun square the nodes, then it's going to square Uranus. So very active day, the 10th, the 11th, you know, stuff changing. But because it will reactivate that conjunction point that we had at the very end of July, the beginning of August, it's basically saying, hey, you know, you made this decision that you were going to upgrade this part of your life. So are you going to act on it? Are you going to shine a light on it? Are you now aware of what changes are actually taking place? And how is it actually sitting in the heart space? So just heads up, guys. You have planets 16 to, let's say, 23, 24 degrees of the fixed signs. You're feeling this big time, you know, both because the immediate 17 to 19 degrees are getting the square, but then we're going to have that 19 degrees full moon in Aquarius on the 11th. So we're all feeling it. And when outside planets square each other, when we have contact with the nodes, planets that square the nodes, nobody gets a pass. Everybody is affected by this. So whatever is going on is happening collectively. And what I like about the axis of, you know, Leo and Aquarius is that it really does take some action or awareness from individuals to be able to participate better collectively, right? Aquarius. So I've said before, like where Leo is the stage, they're the actor, they're the performer, they're giving the performance, they're at the talent show, whatever. Aquarius is the audience, or it's everybody who's coming together to watch what's going on, and they do affect each other. But fixed signs, they carry the energy of what has already been initiated, what has already been started. So in many ways, the Saturn in Capricorn transits, 2017 to 2020, was initiating something, right? It was starting something. We were starting to think more seriously about our goals and where we were going with our lives or our careers, or there was a highlight, obviously, on collective power, government. especially going into 2018 and 2019, seeing, you know, Jupiter and the South Node and Saturn all coming together with Pluto, starting to see where there was major breakdown and major power grabs that were happening in the world, but also in our own life, to make way for when Saturn went into Aquarius, pretty much 2020 going into 2021. And then we're building off of that. So it's like a lot of these things have already been put in motion. The fixed signs now are just carrying off or carrying on the energy of what's already been initiated. So kind of interesting, because it didn't actually start when Saturn went into Aquarius. It was starting when it was in Capricorn. We just weren't aware of what was kind of shifting and how there were power shifts going on. So yeah, so the square, Sun square Uranus, you know, Sun square the nodes, for the most part around 18 degrees. So I want to read that for you for Leo. If you want to know about the 18 degrees, you can watch my Uranus video. I have a webinar that I did that's several hours long. That's me talking all about the different transits that are going to be going on, and when it becomes reactivated. It's like 3 hours. So if you guys want to get that for sale on my website. So let's read about the 18 degrees of Leo, my book, Sabian Symbols. So with the Sabian Symbols, we round up. So we're going to read 19. 19 degrees of Leo, a houseboat party. The theme is celebration. The symbol speaks to creative resourcefulness and finding clever and imaginative ways to relax and enjoy life before beginning some new cycle or effort. The image of a houseboat party suggests laughter, good times, and merriment. The closed setting alludes to the technique of intensifying or building up power by keeping things private, protected until enough energy is generated to accomplish an objective. The emphasis on this symbol is lighthearted fellowship, as it becomes means for cultivating inspiration and enthusiasm, through which all accomplishment of enduring value is achieved. The suggestion here is that with a little ingenuity, any ordinary or commonplace experience can become an adventure in a building for refining personal skills and knowledge. At its highest, the symbol represents a unique talent for motivating others and creating plusage in any group, and the ability to finesse a cooperative response in the cosmos in every worthwhile endeavor. Watch for self-pampering and complete disregard for what the needs of others are. The accent is on finesse. An intensification of creativity and inspiration is building as a result of holding back and containing or keeping things private. Your greatest advantage lies in finding clever ways to turn the most ordinary routine occasion into special and exciting event. Be gracious and encouraging. So the themes would be celebration, party, gathering, fun, creativity, enjoyment. So it's interesting that that's where the sun is. Okay, that's what we want. That's what we need. We need to be celebrating the smaller victories in our life. You know, it's difficult out there right now, but if it's like getting a very small raise, you celebrate it. If it's losing 5 pounds, you celebrate it. If it's, you know, making a decision that you're going to make a healthier choice, or that you are going to choose happiness, right? These are the things that we really want to be focusing on. It's going to be hard to feel that with Saturn in opposition. It's going to be feeling like we want to do these things, but we're being left out. And what Leo teaches us is that it's up to the individual. That if you're focusing too much on the axis of Aquarius, that we can get lost in the sea of other people. So there's so much focus on what you can do, what small steps you can do in your daily routine to make a difference. Because if everybody starts doing that, collectively, we're going to see a huge shift, right? Want to read to you from my buddy Robert Hand. This is a book I always keep on my desk. Planets in Transit. And I just wanted to get a very textbook, you know, example of specifically how these transits play out in transit. So if you have this book, page 77, I'm going to read you guys the Sun opposed Saturn. And then I will read you guys the Sun square Uranus, okay? It's a reading day today. But yeah, I think this is also on my reading list. Sun opposed Saturn. Under this influence, you'll become very conscious of the limitation imposed by circumstances of other people. Your task today is not let yourself be overwhelmed by them. One effect of this transit, in a sense, is a sense of loneliness or inability to communicate with others. You feel there's a gulf between you and others that can't possibly cross. What you are experiencing is the real gulf that always exists between people. The problem is that you present that frame of mind, and if you aren't careful, it may overwhelm you. There is a point beyond which we do not know each other or experience each other's feelings, but there is no need to let that truth drag you down. You may feel this effect psychologically as described above. Instead, you may find that you're actually unable to communicate with people or others that constantly get in your way and hold you back. There seems to be a real conflict between your need for self-expression and your need for relationships. This may have a strong effect on your close personal relationships today. Try to find a balance between your needs and obligations, for neither can be allowed to win at the expense of the other. If duty wins, the point of extinguishing all self-expression so that you only do what is expected, you'll feel restless, inhibited, and unfulfilled. But if you ignore your obligations and do whatever you choose, you'll be in great conflict with other people, which will prevent you from deriving any real satisfaction in great conflict with others. And it will prevent you from your activities. If you make compromises, you have to make compromises. If you're honest in expressing your needs to others, they will do the same. And you should be able to work it out. Feeling of isolation and loneliness is something that you're going to deal with. Energies are lower than usual. You guys get the drift. Okay, so that's what we see. It's a separation. The opposition is two planets standing at separate sides of the room in corners, and their hands are crossed and they're unwilling to make contact with each other. They see each other. And maybe like my view on this is different from a lot of like more traditional astrologers, but oppositions, I believe, present opportunity. You know, if you can make both of those particular houses work, if you can work with where those planets are in those signs, there is a way to find a middle ground, and they can work together if they're both willing to meet each other in the middle, right? So a lot of us are learning how to be flexible and what it means to actually do something that's outside of our comfort zone, or be opening up to people and telling people when we can't, or we don't know how, or if we need help. For the Sun square Uranus, page 79, this can be a somewhat disruptive transit, which you are subject to sudden upsets of behavior that is upsetting to others. Under this influence, it's quite likely that you will not follow your normal routine as other days. This disruption could be an automobile breaking down unexpectedly, a sudden argument, or an unexpected separation. The main point is that you can expect the unexpected. Relationships may be difficult, either because you have a difficulty in contending with the restrictions others place on you, or because they have difficulty contending with the restrictions you place upon them. This transit can indicate ego conflicts and disagreements. As with other Sun-Uranus energies, you're striving to break down your everyday routine, and it would be best to find ways to do this intentionally rather than waiting for it to happen. Let the restless spirit within you express itself. You need new air. You may very well discover a valuable aspect of yourself that you never knew existed because you were afraid to let it come out. Unfortunately, there is some danger, and you can be more accident-prone at this transit if you do not express this energy consciously. Without an outlet, the radical energies within you can turn their back, and there can be a kind of behavior that leads to an accident. In this case, it's important to realize that the accident is not happening to you. Rather, you are creating the accident. It's important, express your impulses to do something free, wild, and different as much as possible without making a total shambles of your life. Don't expect to be able to contend with the everyday grind in a disciplined and patient manner, nor will you be able to put up with other people patiently. Instead, find out what's really bothering you, whether you can make changes in your life that will eliminate these factors. Boy, I'm feeling that. I find that the Uranus square the sun is like me being like, no, I'm not going to do that. And that's usually not me. But I've also found that there's some power in learning to be open and reminding myself that I can change my mind. It's okay for me to change my mind. It's okay for me to disrupt or shake up my routines. It's important that I'm communicating that with other people. When I'm starting to feel that edginess, I'm realizing that it's coming up because I'm not consciously sharing that with other people, or I'm not talking to other people about how I'm feeling that pressure and like feeling the need to kind of break free and be a little bit more rebellious, you know? So now I want to talk to you guys about just some stuff that I was meditating on, stuff that's been coming up with a lot of these transits. And I was kind of like, okay, what's the purpose of this? And I want to wrap on this a little bit, and then I'll get into where the Mars transits are taking place. So you guys have an outlet, you have a way out. Obviously, if you guys have any planets also, that's going to be around, you know, let's say 18 to 23 degrees of the fire signs, you're going to have a trine. Okay, so that's going to help you trine things out. or of the air signs, you're going to have trines from Saturn. So whenever we're dealing with squares or conjunctions or complex transits, it can be really important that you look at your chart and you see where these are being diffused and where it's kind of being released from, if that makes sense. That's why you get an astrologer who can do that for you and talk to you guys about that. Okay. So here's my list of things that I kind of noted that came up in meditation. Number 1, breaking free from labels and outdated status quos, and where liberation is sometimes necessary to free us from labels. Something I've been thinking about a lot lately, just like how, at least in society right now, like labels have become such a big thing. Like, you know, I'm this, I'm that, and that's fine if that's what you do. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's become so over the top that I'm fearing that we're getting to a point where labels are actually so focused on that we're losing track of who we are individually. And whether that's what political party you affiliate with, what your pronouns are, like, I don't care what your labels are. When we become so connected to that, to the point, and that's what Saturn does. You know, Saturn wants that, this is who I am, you know, this is who I've been branded with this. Like, I've seen that through Saturn transits. Like, I've seen that through Saturn transits with me. Going through Saturn transits, I felt very strongly that I needed to have some mark, or I needed to have something that I was really committed to, that was like, this is my identity. Went hand in hand when I tattooed half my body and was like, this is, you know, this is my way of being able to kind of show my true authenticity. For some people, it can be getting a cross tattoo, or it can be, you know, feeling the need to carry a certain title. Whatever your shtick is, when we become too fixated on the title, we start to lose sense of who we really are, because we're becoming so much connected to that identity that we start to kind of lose touch with our authenticity. And we kind of become a part of, like, getting looped into this particular group, right? Because that's how we then identify. Not crazy about some of that stuff. And outdated status quos. You know, I've always been, you know, a mother, and I don't know how to do anything other than that. I've always identified as being a wife, or I've always identified as being an employee, and the adjustment period that comes with. And also, what a lot of people won't tell you is the ego breakdown and the shattering that we start to realize that we are not what we do. And whether that's what you do for a living, or just what your status has been within your family or in society, that can be a real difficult moment for a lot of people when they realize that they've worked a job for 30 years, they've been in a relationship for 30 years, and then suddenly that breaks down. Then they're like, well, who am I? And what have I been doing? And why have I given so much of my personal life, or I've made sacrifices because I feel like I have to kind of live up to this particular status. It's interesting to watch people kind of go through that. Where is having a firm foundation important in allowing us to have more spontaneity or variety in other parts of our life? And I think that that's important, because that's the Saturn lesson here in all of this. It's like, where is that kind of lassoing us in a little bit? So like, Uranus isn't running wild, because I have seen in, you know, clients' readings and charts throughout the years, it's like that person who's like, let's open up our marriage, you know, Uranus, Venus, or Uranus through the 7th. And at the time, it can be exciting and new and like refreshing, but also if it's just running wild and it doesn't have anything that's kind of tethering it, it could really undo something, or it could break something. It could break those bonds. So I've been thinking a lot about, wow, just the North Node conjunct Uranus, the need to integrate and renew something, or infuse a little bit more excitement into it, and like where that can be fun, but can it be too much, right? Because that North Node can also be something that we don't really understand, or something that's foreign to us. And where we can have more change and spontaneity, and excitement, as long as it's in check, right? It's in check with Saturn. So Saturn is kind of watching, and where maybe we can lead more into some of this Saturn stuff, and realizing that if that is the goal, or if that's what we're learning, there is a way to be able to harmonize and allow both. Both can coexist at the same time. Especially if you're somebody who's very black and white. You know, I think a lot of these transits can be very challenging, because if you are very fixed, or if you have a certain way of looking at life, you're realizing that it can't all go in that way. Like, a lot of us are learning that we have to learn new skills. We have to try new things. We have to be more flexible. We have to decide where we're going to bring other people in, or we're going to make some changes and we're going to remove some relationships from our life. And we're having to consider the perspective of other people while still being true to ourselves. Where do we need to get out of our comfort zone and start doing things differently? I mean, I guess that's building on that, you know, we can have this comfort zone that I think that's what Taurus is about, comfort, right? It's about comfort, security. It can be about, you know, consistency, you know, Taurus, where Taurus is different from Virgo, I think Virgo can be about that repetition. So I think that in some areas of our life, we're focusing on comfort and we think that there's only one way to get there. You know, many of us have been like, there's point A and then there's point B. And what we're realizing is that if we really do want to get to point B, and if point B really is in alignment with some of our values, then we do have to make some choices and some changes in how we're going to get there. For other people, they're realizing that they don't want to go to point B, they want to go to C, D, whatever. There's now other things that are evolving. So I think for many of us, it's like we have to get out of our comfort zone and we have to do something different, because the Saturn-Uranus squares wouldn't be happening unless we were being asked to do something very unusual. And whether that's taking a different route to work, shopping in a different part of our town, reaching out and making new friends, you know, networking with new people, trying a new hobby, it doesn't matter. We have to do something different to be able to get out of our comfort zone. So something that I would encourage people to do is like, you know, make a list of things that are scary for you. And I'm not talking about like jumping out of an airplane. I mean, unless that's like your shtick, but wouldn't recommend that with some of the Uranus transits. But make a list of some things that you would like to accomplish or that you would like to experience, but you're scared to do that. And then start breaking it down and really asking yourself, well, why are you afraid to do those things? And what small changes can you make to possibly get to the point where you are able to experience that or try that out? I think probably my most favorite thing that's been happening from some of these transits has been realizing that, and I see it through my clients, so it's like so refreshing to see that and know that it's just not just me going crazy, but we're embracing new identities within ourselves. And to some extent, like I said, there's something new that's like emerging. So we're starting to kind of see like, wow, there's this like facet of my life or my personality that like I've never seen before, or I've never been comfortable wearing out of the house, you know, like that's the coolest thing that I think is kind of happening with some of these Uranus transits, is that those are starting to emerge. They're breaking out, they're breaking free. And for some people, it can also just be, I think also just, you know, that's something that comes with age, that you just start accepting things and embracing yourself. And there's something kind of interesting and cool about getting older and being like, you know, who cares? Like who cares? You know, I just have to come out with it. And it might feel strange and unusual and kind of taboo doing that publicly, right? Or with your friends or with your family or things like that. And just starting to see that there are parts and pieces of yourself that are emerging that you didn't know were there. So it's kind of this cool archaeological, you know, like discovery that's like, oh, you know, I haven't had fun like that since I was like a kid, or, you know, I didn't realize that I would ever really love like gardening, like whatever your thing is. I think that the next prompt is interesting, and it's just flat out like, what are your needs outside of society's needs? What are your personal individual needs versus what society tells you you should be doing or what you should be needing, right? And we see it every day. We see it every day with ads that are just being blasted through our tablets and our phones, and we're on websites and we're on YouTube, and they're selling you like shampoo or whatever it is that they're trying to sell you. I don't know. They sell me weird stuff. But something about this makes me start thinking, like going like, wow, like of course we're being preconditioned, or we're in a way being sold on the idea of like what we need. Right? And that we live in this lifestyle right now where there's just like lots of consumerism, and like you don't realize that you're craving something or you need it until something pops up, and then you're like, yeah, I should be doing that. And it doesn't matter if it's face creams or if it's clothes or whatever it is, like there's something. And it's got me thinking about being like, well, if people were more conscious of what was going on in their lives, and they were starting to really get serious, Saturn, about what it is that they need, and like screw what society tells you, like what do you need, and figuring that out and like sticking to that plan, like how much people's lives would change. And that can be everything from, you know, what you should be eating to like what are society's expectations. You know, are you expected to get married and do this, that, or go to college or settle down? Like, and I think a lot of people are kind of realizing that what expectations have been put on us, whether it's from society or from our elders or family or whatever, our bosses even, where it doesn't fit. Like, we can't be living in a society where we're trying to put a peg into a square hole, right? Like a round peg into a square hole. It's just, it doesn't fit for everybody. Which brought up, and this is so weird, because it's not something I would say ever. Like, this isn't my thing, and I've heard it not very often in my lifetime. And it's definitely not anything that would stick with my generation, but something that it came up literally while I was meditating was, what's good for the goose isn't always good for the gander. Which, if you're old enough to know that term, that's not really how it goes. But different people with different views, needs, and beliefs, right? So this belief that's like, oh, what's good for one person is good for everybody. And I think that's that very Saturn in Aquarius vibe. And what we're going to start seeing with the squares to the nodes and the oppositions to Saturn is, no, it's not. No, it's not. We're seeing this in politics where, big bills and spending bills and money's being printed. We're sending it to other countries. We're doing all this stuff. But we can't help the individuals. We can't help the small businesses. We can't help those who are struggling or people who are in need. We can't food or clothe people here. But we're being told that we need to make sacrifices for the greater good. Saturn giving it to other people. And I'm all about humanitarianism. But to an extent, there's something going on here that's really going to have large, lasting impacts on individuals and children, youth, right? Leo. So in this case, apparently, what's good for the goose is not always good for the gander. I had to laugh when that came up because I was like, that is not me. That's coming from someone else. Which leads me to the topic also of the polarity of Aquarius and Leo. And I think something that's come up for me a lot is like, how are we dealing with rejection? Because we see with oppositions, we see with full moons that really highlight, opposition every single time we have a full moon, but it's in a conjunction to Saturn and it's square the nodes. It's like, oh my God, there's bound to be rejection this week. Some of us are dealing with somebody who just dumped us, or we got a rejection letter to college, or our boss told us we're not cutting it. A partner saying, hey, you're not doing enough around the house. Like, we're gonna hear these things. People are gonna say no. It's because things are changing, but it's all about how we're dealing with rejection. And I think like this is really important for people who aren't really dealing well with some of the changes going on, like can't accept the breakup, can't accept the financial situation, can't handle the fact that somebody, said no to them. And how we deal with that rejection. And we're actually doors that close, that are closing right now, are closing to get you more hyper-focused and diligent and on the path of where you do need to go. So focusing on the rejection and what's falling apart or what you're not getting isn't going to get you anywhere. It's going to make the process take longer, be more painful, much more challenging, rather than being like, that didn't happen. And I'm okay to be upset about it, but I'm not going to cry about it for 2 months and stalk that person on Instagram kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? How do we learn to do things in our life specifically for our own personal gain or pleasure without seeking outside validation? That's the question, right? Especially when we're looking at planets in Leo, which is very lively, romantic, dynamic. We want to dance and scream and share, and we get excited, and everything feels just bigger than life because it's in a solar sign. And I think that as we start to see the oppositions to Saturn, we're going to start seeing, at least in terms of society, like, oh, don't celebrate that too much. Not everybody's going to give you a pat on the back, or, people who are super consumed with how many, Twitter followers they have, or Instagram followers, or how many people are watching their TikTok views and whatever, like how many hearts you're getting on something. And yeah, we're in a society where we become extremely consumed by that. We need that instant gratification, that dopamine hit. But are we doing it because we're putting on a show? Because we want that reaction, right? We want people to applaud us. We want people to love us. And if we are doing that, what's the point? Why are we doing it? Why are we putting on a show? Why are we wearing a costume, right? do we do it because we want appreciation? We want, you know, people to love us. We want people to like us. I don't know. I think that it takes away from the process of being creative. You know, I think that it's like any good writer, any good artist, whatever, they're going to say, stop talking about it, go do it. You know, stop talking about writing, go do it. Stop talking about how amazing of an actor you are. Just go act, just go paint. And not everything is meant to be something that is just plastered all over the internet, because we are going to see that there are going to be individuals or groups or some collective kind of downer energy that's going on, that's going to want to bring us down on an individual level. And they're not going to give you 300 likes for your dog's birthday type of shit, but have your dog's birthday anyway. You know what I'm saying? So be asking yourself, am I creating for the sake of creating, or am I doing it because I want other people to give me recognition and I'm doing it for that reason? May not be the best reason to be creating. Your heart may not necessarily be in it. And where can we get out of our own way? Saturn's kind of grumpy, you know, and I think that where we're seeing that grumpiness is where we're getting frustrated, and that frustration is stemming from rejection of our true nature, where we're not just being ourselves, right? Where we're not just being ourselves. And it doesn't mean we should be mean. It doesn't mean that we have to be stern and serious all of the time, but we wouldn't be having that frustration if we weren't just really being able to express how we truly feel. And then it's important to be ourselves, you know, because everybody else has already been taken. I'm sure you guys have heard that as well. It's something I've been thinking about a lot too. It's like, why do I want to be like somebody else? I don't want to be like other people. Like when I feel my mind going in that direction, like I should be doing this or I should be doing that, I try to kind of roll it back and go like, no, actually, no. I'm okay like being in my lane and doing my own thing. And once again, it's probably something that comes with age, but just the sense of just being like hopelessly and gloriously yourself. And if that means that you're this, you know, really loud person, great. Awesome, do that. Probably gonna drive some people crazy with the Uranus squares. And like I said, that the grumpiness can stem from this rejection and this unwillingness to actually just come out with it. And the pride that's necessary, I think, to also be authentic. Like there is a sense of pride that comes with that, with Leo. That's like, well, I don't care if you don't like it, I like it, you know? And it can venture into arrogance, so you wanna be careful there, but I think that when we're starting to shift more into authenticity and then having that pride of being yourself, even if other people don't agree with you, like you're bound to ruffle some feathers this week. If you have fixed placements, best believe there's going to be some feather ruffling. So get ready to be hearing all those chickens doing their squawking, because part of what's going on right now is that the rules of the game are changing. Okay, so the rules of the game are changing. As a result of those rules changing, we are going to be seeing that other people don't actually respond very well to that. It's just, that's what happens. Sorry, I'm not gonna, you know, stand for this anymore, or I really don't want to be your friend, or whatever. Like these things can happen, and I think I'm hoping that it materializes as some people learning to agree to disagree. You know, I wish we could go back to a time where we could be like, whatever, you do you, and we don't have to agree on politics, we don't have to agree on what's going on in the world, we don't have to talk about religion, philosophy, science, belief, none of that stuff. We can have our own opinions, we don't have to agree, we can still be friends. And I'm hoping that some people are gonna see, because of the effects that happen this next week, that you're gonna find out like who your true friends are. You're gonna find out who your people are, right? Sun opposed Saturn. And where, in my mind, this is something I've always told myself, like it's better to have 4 quarters and 100 pennies. Because 4 quarters, you got those 4 people you can rely on, they're solid. But if you have a bunch of scattered social connections and people that's just kind of like loose, when things get tough or whatever, like who's that one person or those 4 main core individuals like that you really could use, if that makes sense, if you're visual like me. So like I said, when you change the rules of the game, other people aren't going to respond well to that. That's going to be the Sun square Uranus. Oh, you do this? I don't like that. Okay, you know, take a hike. And you're going to see people who are going to do that. Now, it can very quickly materialize into ultimatums. So we want to watch for those too. We don't necessarily want to be giving them, but it's quite possible that the days revolving around the full moon, you know, the day of, 3 days before, 3 days after, we're going to see there's going to be some definitive things going on. The, you know, letting some people, you know, go in our life. That's what we do when we have full moons, especially in Aquarius, being associated with friends, networks, and anything in regards to others. But the challenge is the opposition to the Sun. And I see that as, on a heart level, realizing to get where we gotta go, we have to listen to our own voice. Sometimes we do have to be a little prideful. Sometimes we do need to focus more on what's gonna make us happy. Stop comparing ourselves to the Joneses. Who gives a shit what kind of car they're driving or what they are gonna think, right? Because we can be very consumed with what other people think, but everybody's going through this collectively, so at least I kind of feel like there's not as many people who are going to care about some of the changes that you're about to make in your life as you think. Like, everybody's dancing, so don't worry, not everybody's watching you, you know what I'm saying? And when I say dance, I kind of see like the next week or two is like Mission Impossible, and like Tom Cruise is like, you know, trying to avoid all the lasers. That's what the next week is going to feel like. So everybody's so focused on trying to keep their lives together and them kind of bracing for impact that they're not going to be watching you. I think what I like about these transits also is that it's really asking us, like, are you being like a lead role in your own life? You know, I've joked around a lot. I got a Leo South Node, so I definitely do play into that a lot. And I think something that I have started saying jokingly around the house is I'm like, yeah, I give big main character energy, you know, like big, and it's like my husband will laugh and just be like, oh God. But the more that I said it, I was like, no, you know, like I'm trying to do that. Not like I'm putting on a show, but just more being like, yeah, I have to be the main character in my life. Nobody else is going to play it, you know. I don't know who. I don't know. I would say like an adaptation would be like maybe Drew Barrymore. I don't know. You tell me who would play me. Don't say Kelly Osbourne. All right, I don't want to hear that shit. I think about that though. Just like, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? And nobody's going to jump in and be that co-star that's going to nudge me along. Like, I have to be a willing participant in what's going on in life. And in order to make some of these things happen that I know I want to have happen, like, I have to kind of show up and be willing to play an active role. So are you playing a lead role in your own life? Are you giving big main character energy? It's Leo season. Ask yourself that. And if you're not, then you need to get on with it. Because if you're not doing that, the truth is that you're either watching other people do it or you're living vicariously through other people. And that's something that can come up right now. It's the, are you so consumed with they moved on or they got a better job or they're doing great, they forgot about me. Who cares? Let people live their life. If you're consumed with that, you're not moving forward and you're settling and you're not allowing yourself to be present in the moment and really, I think, getting consumed. You know, we're getting consumed because of what we're being fed. Bullshit on social media, all these apps. We get sucked into it. Gossip. Oh my God, this person broke up with Pete Davidson. Oh my God, the Kardashians, this and that. Like, I know you guys think that's crazy, but there's so much going on in some of these more kind of gossip magazines and worldly gossips and this and that, that it literally can be all consuming to the point where, what are we doing? What about our lives? And where are we glamorizing what other people are doing? And we're failing to actually romanticize and glamorize our own life. Like, we have to be doing that right now. It's so important to have romance with planets going through Leo, to have fun, to take chances, to play. And with the North Node in Taurus, we also have to have pleasure. It's so important. If we want more pleasure, we have to be willing to make these changes. And last but not least, Saturn gives the biggest rewards, I think, of all the planets, from my perspective. And when Saturn leaves a house, he leaves a sign. So we know that in the spring next year, Saturn's going to go into Pisces. It's going to leave Aquarius. It's going to be interesting to see how that manifests, especially knowing that Saturn does find his joy in the 12th house. So it will not be going through the 12th house for everybody, but it has that energy of like being able to find that peace and that connection and the quiet and really kind of connecting to wrapping things up or having like a deeper, profound spiritual practice. Now that's next year, we'll talk about that. But when I think about Saturn and Saturn leaving gifts, it never ceases to amaze me. Since I've really been tracking Saturn, probably the last like 12 years, I realized that with every time he's leaving, he really does give a gift. And so yeah, we got to go through some chaos this month. You're going to see some more that's going to happen in the fall. But I think similar to that of a diamond, with such intense pressure, provides something very valuable in the end. So this is that period of the year where you realize, like, this is what I want. And it's going to be hard, and I have to make this change, and this change to be able to facilitate that. But if that's the goal, and if that's really what I want to do, and that's what I'm passionate about, that's what I love, I'm willing to take these risks now, even if I lose a few people along the way, to be able to have that diamond in this next year. Okay, guys, so hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to talk to you very briefly now about where, obviously, if you know where the full moon is taking place, it's in Aquarius. If you haven't seen the video, go watch it. I talk about the axis between Aquarius and Leo. In this video, I want to tell you guys, now that you understand the dynamic, I'm going to tell you where Taurus is going to be in your chart, which house it is, and where the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction is actually shaking things up physically. Remember, Mars is active. It's what we need to do. It's linear. It's about what we are adapting into our routine. I will also tell you what you're breaking away from. This is where Saturn is. So when you hear break away, we're breaking away from this. We're realizing that there's something that we need to not focus on right now. We need to focus on Leo. We need to focus on Taurus, okay? Which is weird because there's going to be a full moon in Aquarius. So you're like, what? All right, so I'm a Western astrologer. This is whole sign. So you want to listen for your ascendant to see where it's going to take place in your life. You want to listen to your sun to see how it's going to affect you on an ego level. And the moon for how this is going to be changing things for you in your home or your emotions. All can apply. Yes, if you are into Placidus, you can listen to both signs, especially if you have intercepted houses or anything like that going on. You may have to do that, or you can listen to your progressed chart. I listen to my rising, and then I listen to my sun, and then I listen to my moon personally, because I feel like that's the most, that's the best order, basically. To each their own, choose your own adventure. Okay, so for Aries and Aries rising, a lot of the stuff I said resonates with you. I will just tell you that because you are having this Mars-Uranus transit that's going through your second house, it is helping you break away from feeling like you need to have friends or groups around all the time. There are some people worth committing to, working with, having in your corner, but there are other people that you're realizing are not as worth keeping around, or it's harder to kind of stay connected to. So there's more focus and emphasis on working on your self-esteem, making money, producing something, creating something, working with your hands, maybe something that is bringing you some kind of stability and also can bring you more in terms of finances, okay? So lean into that. That's what's gonna help you deal with diffusing some of this energy where you're feeling like you're apart from some friends or from some individuals, okay? Because Sun's going through your fifth house. It's more actually about creating. So you might not want to go out and hang out with your friends. You might be starting a side hustle. You're doing a hobby. You're playing with kids. Something's going on that is more, I think, going to be more fulfilling than partying or spending time with other people. For Taurus and Taurus rising, you have this Mars North Node Uranus transit going through your sign. So for Taurus rising, it's in your first house. What are you doing? How is your body, Taurus? Are you feeling restless? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling short-tempered? Do you feel like you're wound up? Are you exhausted? Like, what's going on? Pay attention to you and your body and your behavior. Now you're breaking away from some professional responsibilities. You're focusing more on your home and your family. So keep in mind, you've got the sun that's going through your natal fourth house. You've got Saturn in your 10th house. You're gonna feel at the time of the full moon like, oh my God, am I ever gonna make headway in my career? Like, where are things going? Like, ugh, you know, I wanna see something change, but what you don't realize is that you're being asked to break away from some of these professional things right now. Your attention is on how you are behaving when it comes to your home and your family. If you need to be more proactive in this area, if you're stressed because you're feeling like you're being pulled between, you know, both ends of the spectrum, you're getting hit pretty hard because you're a fixed sign. And I think that if you shift away from looking at responsibility just as going to work and you start looking at it as taking better care of yourself, making sure you're getting your emotional needs met, you know, doing odd kind of tasks around the house, getting work done, making an effort to be more emotionally vulnerable and also connecting with your family, you're going to see this balance out. For Gemini and Gemini rising, you have got a Mars North Node Uranus conjunction taking place in your 12th house. So this is, I mean, you really need alone time because you can have some wild moods. You can be quite intense. You would do much better having some peace, you probably have some sleep disturbances going on, maybe some stress, some anxiety, fear or concerns about the future. Being in nature is helpful, okay? And I think meditation, chanting, dancing, yoga, things that's gonna kind of help the soul better acclimate to some of these vibrational changes. Now, you're breaking away from old outdated beliefs, old gurus, and education. there can be some rattling realizations that what you have always believed in is very different than cosmic law. You know, I've got a client of mine who's like a rabbi, and it's interesting to like watch her go through this transit because she's got a Gemini North Node, and all of these are, you know, these squares are taking place in her 9th and her 12th house, and she's learning so much more about all different kinds of belief systems, and incredibly open and receptive, and like wanting to kind of change the world. It's really a cool thing to see happen in her chart. But it's just literally things that you have always believed in, or that you've always given a lot of time or dedication to. And this could be like, I got a degree in law, and now I realize like the system's corrupt. I want to be a chef. Like, we're seeing stuff like that. So it's not always just religion and belief system. It can be what you've learned, and then realizing that there's something new that's emerging behind the scenes spiritually, and intuition that's waking up, right? So for you, you're moving and breaking away from outdated beliefs, gurus, education, and things that you thought that you knew. Lean into alone time so you can carve that time out to start developing what new is emerging for you behind the scenes. For Cancer and Cancer rising, you have got the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction taking place in your 11th house. So it is shaking things up with your friends, changes with your friends. You're probably seeing like, you know, friend breakups, and then you're seeing brand new people coming into your life. Taurus can bring artists and performers and musicians and wealthy people, and people who also want to have fun and have a good time. People who are into agriculture, cooking, farming, the list goes on. But there's new people coming into your life, okay? So that's really important for you, Cancer. Realize that this eclectic bunch of people that are coming into your life are here to help you. Break away from pain, fear, regret, loss, feeling like you don't have enough. So if you've been feeling like finances are tight, or you don't really know how you're going to make ends meet, or fear of exposing your vulnerabilities, or if you've been going through some painful situations, you're moving away from that because new people are coming into your life to give you support, to show you that there is a richness to life, who want to share with you, who want to help you, strive, I think, to have some of your goals met, okay? So be open to getting out of this, like, it could be like feeling like a dark space, feeling like you've been in a bit of a slump, and now things are suddenly changing because of the new faces that you are starting to meet. So very exciting. For Leo and Leo rising, you've got the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction taking place in your 10th house. It is totally radically changing your career, out in the world, what you're doing for work, your responsibilities, and how people see you. So there's lots that's growing there. It might be very sudden and very quick. You might see a little bit of breakdown before there's breakthrough, but you're very dedicated to making these changes. Now, what you're breaking away from is this energy of Saturn in your 7th. So you're having to say goodbye, or not today, not next week, never, no thank you, never again, to some of your friendships, relationships, or business alliances. So you're realizing that some of these individuals are challenging your ability to actually climb the ladder when it comes to your career. You are also dealing with some karmic stuff in regards to relationships as well, because it's really kind of dinging planets in your 1st house, and also the South Node in your 4th. So you're clearing karma, okay? But at the same time, you may feel a distance or a separation. You might feel like after some time apart from someone, you've been more focused on work, and then you can kind of look at things and go like, do I still want that relationship? Does it resonate? Strong relationships will stick, but you will start to really feel the pressure over the next week of realizing like, I just want to be a powerhouse. I just want to be me. I need somebody who understands that. I need friends who understand that. And you might be feeling like there's friction with friends and relationships this week, and also with family. And yeah, if you have to break away from some people that are like dead weight, you're going to have to cut them loose. But the real ones will stay, and they will understand, and they will see that you're kind of being pulled from all different angles, and they'll be patient. For Virgo and Virgo rising, you have got the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction happening in your 9th house. Radical shifts are taking place in regards to your belief system, sudden trips, can be legal stuff coming up. It can also be you just learning more about the world, and learning more about what brings you pleasure. You're breaking away from daily routines, health crisis, stuffy workspaces, or bad habits. So you're letting all of this go, Virgo. You are realizing that there is so much more to life. Maybe you have adopted a new belief system. Maybe you have a new guru, a new teacher. You're going through a training, a certification. Maybe you're traveling so you can go and find yourself. regardless of what's happening, it is definitely shaking things up and it's creating some friction with your schedule. And perhaps you're realizing that some way of doing things, how you've always done things, needs to kind of break down. And you might not adjust well. So maybe it's like now that you're going to be traveling more, maybe because you're stressed over legal stuff or lawsuits or school, that it's affecting your daily routines. And that can be how you're eating, how you're working out. We can also find that there's health crises that lead us to having to find a new belief system. If you've been working in spaces that feel like they've been stuffy or that need to be changing in terms of like your office space, that can be happening too. There can be relocations for work or working with people in new time zones. And if there have been bad habits or anything, you might be using your faith to be able to finally clear some of those bad habits away for good. For Libra and Libra rising, you have got the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction happening in your natal 8th house. It's karmic. This is a house that is about karmic entanglement, the money that you owe other people, money with a spouse perhaps, or business partners, taxes, anything in regards to joint resources, right? Taurus, but it's your 8th house. So the money that you make with someone else, bills that have to be paid, taxes, things like that. But it's also about intimacy. It's about real merger, right? If the 5th house is where we have one-night stands and have fun and we have sex, the 7th is where we actually meet the other, we come into union, we're partnered, we're committed. But the 8th house is like where you really air out all the dirty laundry. It's like you have to talk about the debt, or you have to talk about the fears or the trauma or things that have happened, and you really feel exposed and you can show yourself to another person. So what you're seeing is that there's this emphasis on intimacy through joint resources and the body, and wanting to try new things sexually or experimenting with sex or with other partners perhaps. But there can also be this breakthrough that's coming where you realize that true intimacy and union is not limited purely to just physical connection, right? Or you might be experimenting more with like physical touch and other ways to be able to expand on intimacy, basically. You're breaking away from obsessing over love. You're breaking away from obsessing over romantic dramas or entanglements, perhaps where there has been an inability to get over past heartbreak or past people. There can also be stuff that's coming up where you're breaking away from some limitation that you have in your heart space, childhood issues. It can also be any blocks that have been coming up in regards to have children. Believe it or not, for some Libra risings, there's going to be like this, oh, I want a kid. But because you have to go deeper into the Taurus area of your life, it's going to be like, well, okay, how do I make that happen? You know, what do I need to work on financially to make that possible? How am I making that tied to intimacy in some way? Or how am I focusing on other things that can be more occult or esoteric or metaphysical or whatever that can distract me from, you know, some heaviness with children? So people who have kids, they might be finding that they are using the 8th house to have their alone time, to go and like work and learn and study. So they're not feeling the restriction of children. If you don't have kids and you don't want kids, then it's how do I move forward in relationships and have intimacy if I don't want to have children, and how are my partners going to feel about that? And it can, for some people with a full moon in your 5th house, be a pregnancy, and how all of a sudden there's this realization that you do want to have a child. So it's going to differ person to person. But it's all going to come down to learning not to obsess about the 5th house, going deeper into why is that coming up psychologically? You know, is there a fixation on love, but not enough on intimacy? Okay, so you want to be asking yourself that. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, this is the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction taking place in your 7th house of relationships and partnerships. So just like Taurus and also Leo, you're feeling the crunch. This is quite an active time for you, Scorpio. Mars, Uranus is shaking things up in your 7th house. If you are partnered, your partner can be temperamental. They can be moody. There can be a sense of them being a little hasty or impulsive. They can be wanting to break free in some way, and you're probably hearing that or you're seeing that. If you're single and if you've been off and on with somebody and it's finally been an off, then you're going to be realizing that you are breaking away from old beliefs about what home family could be. I think everybody who's a Scorpio rising is going to feel this. I find it fascinating that you're moving away from the past, Scorpio. So when I say you're moving away, it's because Saturn's in your 4th house. That can be about your relationship with your mother. So actually there can be like this realization in relationships, okay, if you are partnered, that you're no longer interested in carrying like heavy karmic baggage, family baggage forward in a relationship. So it can be like this realization that's like, wow, you know, I have issues with my mom. And as a result of that, I've had some fears with relationships, or I've had some issues with commitment. I've had some issues with having my own family. And that's coming up through relationships. And so if you're willing to be more active in the relationship realm, you can actually find that your partner can lead you into the future. You can let go old, outdated ways of looking at family or commitment in regards to the home differently. You can feel like in some ways that you're either clearing family debt or karma, or that you are learning through your partner that you can heal from your past, because there are some similarities there. So they might open up and they might talk to you about issues that they had with their family or with one of their parents. I also feel that if there is heavy things going on at home, you know, difficulties with parents, if there is issues with home, paying bills, mortgage issues, relocations, it's going to make you really kind of go, wow, I really need partnership. And as I'm going through these things, it would be really nice to have someone. So if you are single, if you are open to relationship, it's going to basically incentivize you to be open to people. People can show up very quickly as a result of these conjunctions. So break away from old beliefs about home and family. Be willing to kind of write new storylines or create new routes and work with other people to help you in the process. Now, 7th house can also be counselors, therapists. So it can be people who come into your life, or a new astrologer who could basically help you connect the dots and make you realize where there's been patterns of issues in relationships because of unresolved issues with a parent. Okay? Good luck, Scorpio. For Sag and Sag rising, you have got Mars North Node Uranus going through your 6th house, changes in your schedule, trying to have more freedom, possibly trying to be self-employed or creating a group collective in some way of your own, having health crises possibly, but also this is about making some radical changes possibly in your diet. Now, lots of things are going here. You can be more accident prone. You've heard me talk about this. And you're aware that with the squares to Saturn in your 3rd, part of the emphasis right now, and I think how you're going to get through this, is breaking away from your usual routine thinking, how you usually communicate, or even your neighborhood, right? The 3rd house can be the neighborhood. So try taking a break, like get out of your normal kind of routine, where if you always go to the same laundromat, you always go to the same grocery store, you always go on the same walk, change it up a little bit, go somewhere outside of your comfort zone. Get outside of your typical neighborhood, venture out more, traveling more often locally, like taking like road trips where you can get out of town for the weekend. And anything that's going to disrupt your regular way of thinking. You know, having a mantra or some kind of breath work that you can go to. Trying to find consistency and stability in your daily routine. I mean, I think that there can be a lot going on here for you. Some of you guys are having work changes, and you're also having changes in regards to moving. Some of you guys are really trying to kind of break bad habits, and that can be like smoking, because the 3rd house could be that. It could be hyperventilating. It could also be that you guys are realizing that some of the mental blocks are literally connected to some of the health issues or the inability to overcome certain dietary problems, and that those are connected. So what can you do? You can go deeper into your 6th house, right? You can ground more often. You can work with crystals. You can eat an organic diet. You can be going outside, hugging a tree, you know, anything that you can be doing where you're like, I'm gonna make a conscious effort to make sure that I'm making my lunches and I'm food prepping. So I know that when I'm running around and I'm getting things done, I'm not forgetting to eat. I'm making sure that I'm grounding myself and I'm staying healthy. And I'm reminding myself also that this is equally important and it's also a responsibility. So you can move through and break away from doing too much, having too much on your mind, forgetting to eat, forgetting to, you know, take your vitamins, whatever. And yeah, get outside of your normal routine. So I would say try to go and explore parts of town, or go off on a road trip if you can every now and then. Okay. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, you have got the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction in your 5th house. Fun, exciting times, falling in love, you know, having a new hobby that you love, dancing, performing, being on stage, sudden opportunities for pregnancy, children. I mean, that's what you're focusing on right now, right? That's where you really want to bring your attention, because it's going to help you break away from old self-esteem issues, like delaying developing new hobbies, you know, denying your personal talents, any issues that you're feeling like where you're having money setbacks. This is a house where you want to take risks, right? You want to do that. And I know that that's not your middle name, Capricorn, but so much has changed in your life the last couple of years with some of these transits that I feel like if you're embracing happiness, fun, joy, and creativity, you cannot go wrong here. It will open the door to start relieving some of these issues that you have been feeling like you've been having financially. For some of you guys, it's realizing like, hey, I really should be self-employed, right? Or I really do need to do something more creative. How do I do that? You know, and not getting too sucked into the whole, I don't have enough money, the money's not coming. You can't do that. You have to be focused on the 5th house where you're creating in a very pure way and you're bringing something to life. So it's a garden, it's a hobby that turns into a job. It could be deciding, you know what, I need to have a baby, I want to have a kid. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of Cap risings that are doing this right now because they're like, this is my thing. Eclipses going through your 5th house is going to bring that. But whatever ends up coming, it will be something that you fall in love with, whether it's a person or it's a pastime. And taking risks in that is very, very, very important because it can bring you big rewards. All right, so for Aquarius and Aquarius rising, my dear, you have Mars North Node Uranus going through your 4th house. And it can feel like your home life is being uprooted. It can be scandals in the family, divorces, sudden moves, relocations, power outages. I mean, it can get kind of wild here for you. And that suddenly there's this dramatic change in your household. It can be that you have this need to pick up and move and go somewhere. You see this friction that's happening, that's going to be coming up during the full moon and through these transits because you have planets going through your 7th house of relationships. So you're seeing challenges from other people and it is starting to come into an opposition with Saturn in your sign. The way to navigate this is to embrace the changes in your home life, right? Embrace that. If it means that, you know, a kid moves back in with you, if it means that you decide that you're going to sell your house and pick up and relocate, if that means that there is a transition in the family and somebody goes, where does that free you, right? And that could be a parent you're taking care of. That could be a spouse that walks out on you. We don't know. But where are you breaking away from old versions of yourself, embracing more independence, and also a reality check that is likely going to be coming? You're realizing that home is not necessarily a physical place, it's within you. So you can roll with the punches when there are changes that are going to happen in your domestic zone. You can move through that with more grace. Granted, it's going to be harder for you because actually what you want to get out of with Saturn in your 1st house is being too rigid, being too blocked. Now, it is good for you to have boundaries. You are going to have to say no because some of you guys don't want your 40-year-old living in your house again. But by the same token, you're also going to realize that by being flexible, you can meet others halfway. And if that means welcoming them into your home or if that means going and relocating for love, so be it. But I think it's going to be more challenging for you. So really reevaluating your boundaries, paying attention to your body because this full moon can bring it up, but really getting out of this drama that you're having with you and another person, which can be very much highlighted here pretty soon. You're setting some new boundaries with people in your family, and you're giving yourself, you know, more independence. But like I said, reality checks are very likely for you. And I just have this feeling that flexibility and movement within the home or changes within the home can actually really give you what it is that you're looking for. And last but not least, we have our Pisces, where you are having the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction in your 3rd house of the mind, short trips, siblings, communication. Your mind is changing. Even though Taurus is slow, you might be more pensive and you think about things and you take your time before making a decision. It's very clear that you're having to get with the program, right? With the squares to Saturn, you're breaking away from feeling isolated. You're breaking free from old subconscious patterns, if you have been feeling blocked, right, or that you're not connecting to the ethers, it's helping you cut out old mental habits. So when we're working with that third house energy, it's, are you listening to self-help tapes when you're driving? Are you teaching yourself about new financial skills or learning more about investing or saving or trading? Are you journaling regularly as a form of, you know, being able to get everything out and just doing that mental dump every day? Consider going and doing like the artist way, doing your morning pages. Like that can be really helpful for you because Taurus is the artist. And it makes me feel like there is something really beautiful and really creative that can be coming through automatic writing, channeling, sketching, drawing, or just speaking. You know, some of you guys are like, I really just want to write a book, or I really want to start a podcast. And it's good because it's going to get you out of that funk where Saturn's been in your 12th house and you've been feeling lonely or you've been reflecting a lot. Saturn in this house is not a bad place to have it. Like I said, Saturn does have a tendency to find its joy in the 12th. But you've been thinking about things and reflecting on things, and you're reflecting on life and spirituality and like what's really going on out there. And I think you have something worthwhile to say. So if it's putting the podcast out, starting the YouTube channel, writing the book, just journaling, writing music again, these things are going to really help you in your daily routine. And you move away from focusing on meditating and kind of holding back to coming out with it. This can bring out changes in how you're communicating and your thought patterns. It can seem a little intense. It can be a little frantic even. So I want you guys to pay attention to that. Now, you're also having these squares that are going to be taking place with planets going through Leo. So just be more mindful. You and Sag, you're a little bit more accident prone. So ground your energy when you're driving, when you're going around, when you're doing things, because, you know, the universe has a weird way of trying to ground you if you're not paying attention. I mean, very early on in me doing readings, this was 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. And I knew I wasn't doing it. I wasn't grounding when I was like leaving where I was doing reading. So I would be reading all day and then I wasn't always eating. I was just so busy. I'd have like a shake or something, get in my car, back up to like go home. And I lived like no more than like a mile and a half away. Probably backed into 3 bumpers, you know, in the midst of that year, before finally going and sitting with my mentor. And she didn't even know. It was just really funny, but she's psychic too. And she was like, so are we going to talk about like the fact that you keep like running into people's cars at work because you're not grounding your energy? And I was like, what? But that's literally what it was, right? Saturn going through my 3rd house. But it made me realize like, wow, the universe is using that to get my attention physically because I'm not grounding my energy. So I need to be more conscious of like, you know, grounding my energy, turning it off. So that way when I leave, I'm not a space cadet. Pisces. There can be some space cadet things going on here with Mars and Uranus in your 3rd. Perhaps have an exercise to ground you. Don't be driving and texting. If you're walking around and texting, anything like that, you're more accident prone because that Saturn in the 12th is like in la la land, or it's kind of in this meditative state. So try to bring your energy into, you know, just a constant state of awareness and feeling more grounded. And it can be doing things with your hands, right? 3rd house. So gardening, writing, playing guitar, these things, it can really help you stay checked in and make sure that you're not tripping over things, you know? All right, guys, hopefully this was helpful. I know it was a bit of a long one, but I really wanted to differentiate these transits outside of the full moon and give you a better understanding and a fuller picture of both of these separately and how they're actually all connected, to bring up a little, I think kick up a little bit of dust this week, definitely ruffle a few feathers, but give us the opportunity to create change. So let me know, where is this taking place in your chart? How are you dealing with these energies? I would love to hear from you guys. Drop me a line and say hello. And I will be back in a couple days. I'll have another video out for you guys on Thursday. Trying to see what I'm planning on doing. We're going to talk about Venus entering into Leo. So that's going to be the next video that we're going to be doing. So stay tuned for that. I'll have that out for you guys on Thursday. Until next time, enjoy the rest of your week and take care.